Well, I'm pretty sure our tester's not supposed to be blowing bubbles like that. That's probably our culprit right there. Good Lord. Welcome back to Bad Attitude C10. Today, guys, we're going to go over some stuff I want to share with y'all about valve spring testers. I had one years ago, and when it came time to check out these dual springs that we picked up from our friends over at BTR, I couldn't locate it. So I went and borrowed one from a friend of mine, and it was no bueno because it would only go up to 250 pounds. So I broke down and I went on ahead and bought a cheap one because me being on a budget, that's all I could afford. And well, you get what you pay for, needless to say. We'll get into that in a minute. And I upgraded to another one. After checking 4 springs, the gauge broke. I replaced the gauge. I did everything that I needed to do, and I ran through and tested all my valve springs, and I videoed it and was just going to take stills or screenshots from the video to share the pressures at these settings where they needed to be and everything. And the spring pressures were all over the place. And when I was watching the video back, I noticed and found out why. I purchased another junky tester. So I'm going to show you a clip of that video and what transpired. And after reaching out to some companies that make a reputable USA product, I couldn't find anything and get any help. So I spoke to Bubba, a friend of the family. He had a credit card, which my credit shot, so I don't have credit. And he allowed me to purchase a good tester on his card. And we'll get to that, and I'll share that with y'all toward the end of the video. So stay tuned. So guys, I started out like most of us do and tried to borrow a tester from a friend, but his would only go up to 250 pounds, which would not be adequate for our situation. So I then Googled and I found out about the ones that Proform has, and I clicked over to Amazon and was purchasing what I thought was it. And here's the stuff about it and the information. And once it got here, I noticed, hey, it does not have Proform on the gauge like it's supposed to. So after realizing that, I started checking some stuff out, and the gauge, whenever it was completely set at 0, the micrometer was supposed to be at 1 inch and 500 thousandths. So I was going to check it, so I verified that, and well, it was 44 thousandths off. Well, that wasn't the only catch. When I started looking at the micrometer itself, the numbering on the micrometer was backwards. At this point, I was like, well, shit. So I sent a message to the seller from Amazon where I purchased the gauge, and I was like, hey, this tester is not what y'all had in the advertisement. It is not a Proform setup. Your micrometer is numbered backwards. And they're like, oh, well, it's just easy math. You just do the deduction from the 1 inch factor and it'll tell you. So, you know, I'm like, no, it should be proper. And I told them I wanted a refund and I was going to send it back, and they did honor it and they did reimburse my money, but it took 3 to 5 days to get it here. So at this point I was kind of fed up, and I went on ahead and ordered another gauge setup that would get here basically within 2 days, even though it didn't have a micrometer. And I was like, well, I'll go ahead and makeshift, you know, a depth gauge on a piece of aluminum angle and mount the gauge to that, and then, you know, be able to subtract the thickness of the aluminum. And my monstrosity came together, and I was like, hey, this is all cool, and I can still, you know, measure the height of the springs when I'm doing installed height and all that. Well, after that, I tested and the gauge broke, as I mentioned, so I then took the stuff apart and put a new gauge on it, and then I started to test all my springs. Now guys, I was rolling through this and I figured what I would do is I was going to test, you know, the height at installed that the box recommended with the 660 lift, and I was going to check it at the installed height that I was going to use with my cam specs. I did the same thing. I went 60 from CoilMine where they said the open pressure should be, and then I went to the settings where mine was 60 from the actual CoilMine, and that's when I decided what I'd do. Instead of stopping and writing down every spec, I would just go through, test all the springs, and then go back, watch the video, pause it, take a screenshot of the height that it was at and what the actual pressure on the spring was at that said height. Well, when I was watching it back, that's when I found out there was a big variance, and this is what I found out. So if you look here, the gauge setup, I know looks like crap, but you got to remember I already had it apart twice, and I took it apart again, and so the white stuff on it's actually pipe dope, and it's scuffed up and scratched up from being put in the vise doing the gauge change and everything else. Guys, what comes out to look at is no matter where you put this and how you have the arbor press pushing down on it, you could push it to one side or the other, forward or backwards, and it'd give you a different reading and it would leak in a different spot. And so I took the thing completely apart again, and that's whenever I found out that the piston, or plunger if you'd prefer to call it that, and the clearance in the bore of the gauge mechanism was way too big. So it would cock, side load, and leak. So that brings me to making a phone call to Bubba. I had called several reputable companies that make USA-made testers and reached out to see if, hey, could y'all possibly give me a discount or something if I did a video covering some of it. And, you know, it fell on deaf ears. Nobody really did offer anything. The majority of them didn't even respond to messages or emails, either one. So I told Bubba my situation, and he knows that I don't have credit. You know, ever since my accident, I never was able to get back up on both feet because I only got one to begin with. And so he has a credit card he uses for emergencies, and he said, hey, you can use the credit card, purchase the tester, and just make the monthly, you know, payments till it's paid off. And I'm like, well, dude, thank you very much. So we ordered it. And go figure, the day after that, another friend, Robert Slaughter, gives me a call and says, hey, I found my tester and got it out of the container. And he goes, it's in the back seat of the truck. I can swing by one day later in the week and if you want to borrow it. And I was like, well, too late. We already ordered one. So here's the tester that I chose to get, and it is a very nice piece. And what I'll do is in the next video, I'm going to go ahead and go over how it works, show y'all how I used it, and check these springs and give y'all some, you know, results. Until then, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.